Great. Hi, everyone. Thanks for showing up on a Friday afternoon, or most of you, if you're on the East Coast, it's afternoon, it's morning, if you're maybe on the West Coast. I'm Debbie Schwartz, founder of Road2College and the Paying for College 101 Facebook group. Today, we're going to talk about merit scholarships. I'm going to show you the tool we have called Insights to help do better or faster research with merit scholarships. And I'm also going to talk about loans and the changes to the federal loans because I believe they have an impact on how on your family's college search, because it's going to have an impact on costs and how much you can borrow. So before we get started, I would love for people to put in the chat where you're Zooming from, what year in high school your student is, and how much work you have maybe started researching colleges and maybe merit scholarships in particular. Just gives me a sense of who's here today. And I have slides. I think my slides are showing actually. I have a lot to go through. I will try and look at the questions, but I want to try and get through as much of my slides as possible. And then I will go back at the end and look at the questions if I haven't answered something as we've gone through all the whole presentation. So 12th, I will actually tell you that, we send out invites and we post this so we can kind of get a sense of who signed up. I find it interesting that a majority of people who signed up, I don't know if that's necessarily who showed up, are class of 2026. And while I'm happy to share information to whomever and to teach people and to help them, I am kind of encouraging the families with 2027s and 2028s to start earlier. Don't wait until August of the summer before your student is applying. I would rather see families honestly start this a year before, spend the junior year doing research, visiting, and hopefully by the summer before senior year. Doesn't mean you have to have a lockdown final list, but you have a list that you feel comfortable about so that the focus can shift for your student to be spending time on applications and essays. My goal, I think, a lot of people's goal in this space, and even as a parent, you want your student to get as much done before the first day of senior year of high school. It's just once senior year hits, things just start to pile on, and it becomes harder to get through what needs to get done for the applications. It all gets done, but it's just the level of pressure that happens that fall. Okay, thank you for sharing where you guys are at. I just want to make sure, just put in the chat, are you seeing my cover slide that says Understanding Merit Scholarships? And if so, then I will go forward. Great, thank you, thank you. Okay. So let me switch to my slides and let's get going because there's a lot to get in for the hour. Okay, so as I mentioned, I'm going to talk about the student loan changes because I believe that they have a big impact on how much you're going to be able to afford to pay for college, where you're going to be able to get additional money for college if you don't have enough in savings. And then it's going to make searching for merit scholarships all that more important. I'm going to, obviously we'll explain what merit scholarships are for the families. I saw definitely a lot of families with rising juniors, so you might not be as familiar with some of what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about SAI and college budget. Again, I think that this is really important for families to understand where you fit in the spectrum of whether or not you're going to receive any sort of financial aid, or whether or not the only way for you to reduce your cost of college is merit scholarships. And I apologize for maybe class of 2026 if you're familiar with this. And if class of 2026 you are not familiar with this, then this is important information for you, because this is going to fit into a lot of discussions that happen in the fall around financial aid and the FAFSA. And so you'll see a lot of lot of content and webinars talking about filling out the FAFSA. And then I'm going to talk about how we use Insights, which is our platform, and also the common data set, because a lot of our information in Insights is based on the common data set. Okay. So why are merit scholarships so important? If you step back and think about how a family pays for college, there's really three major buckets. There is money that you've been able to save throughout the 18 years. Not everybody can save every year for 18 years. There are other things that are happening, but hopefully you've been able to put something aside. So there's savings, whether it's from the parents or sometimes, if you're lucky enough to have other family members like grandparents willing to contribute, that's a nice amount. That's a nice contribution. And then in addition to saving, some families can figure out over the 4 years that they can maybe cash flow some additional money that they can put towards college costs. So they're they're trying to reduce their home costs. They're obviously, foregoing, purchasing new items, whether it's a new car or going on vacation. But there are ways to, obviously we all know we can skimp by a little bit and put more towards paying for college. So that's money that's coming from the family. The other bucket is free money, which is what we're going to talk about today. And the major categories of free money are financial aid that's going to be based on your financial need. And we'll talk more about how that's determined. Merit scholarships are a big bucket in this free money category. There's private scholarships, and then there's government grants. It's a saying that not just that I have, but I like to repeat it a lot. A lot of people say that the largest scholarship most students will receive is from the college that they attend. So yes, you can go out and your student can be looking for private scholarships. I am not opposed to that. It is just a harder road to go down if that's the only source of free money you're trying to accumulate. It's a numbers game, private scholarships. A lot of students apply to the scholarships that are popular because they're easy to know about. So you have to really have a strategy if you're going to go after private scholarships, and the strategy has to be how you're going to search for them and how you're going to quickly apply to them. And when I say you, I really mean your student, but students might need help in creating this framework. And also, how you're going to reuse essays. Not that, sometimes you might be able to somewhat use an identical essay, but basically that's the work. The work is the research and filling out the applications. And because it's a numbers game, a student might need to be applying to, and these are kind of like
hang on. Thank you.
sorry.
I'm waiting.
Okay. Students sometimes have to apply to maybe 20 private scholarships, and you end up with, one win or one scholarship that they actually receive. And private scholarships also tend to be in lower dollar amounts. They tend to be $500 to maybe $1,500. Again, it's not bad. It's just a harder road to go down and get the money that you might need if you're going to have this gap. Okay, third category is borrowed money. And the two places where majority of families borrow money is from the government and is from private loans. I put the government loans as red because I'm going to talk right next that source of money, although you can still borrow, is going to be severely restricted as compared to in previous years. So as you can see, obviously, the best category that you want to maximize is free money. And again, that's why merit scholarships have always been important, but now they're becoming even more important. Okay, so I'm just curious I don't know how much people are following this part of the bill that was passed, a few weeks ago. If you want to put into chat, I'm kind of honestly curious how many people are aware of the changes that are happening to student loans. If you can want to just put a thumbs up, a yes, a no, didn't know, unaware, yes. Okay. Well, I'm glad that you guys are aware. I'm not thrilled about all these changes, but it's what we have to deal with moving forward. So let me explain. There are many more than what I'm going over, but I picked the two most important ones that are going to be most relevant to parents with class of 2026, 27, 28. Okay, so the first one is there are new student loan caps. You may not be familiar with all this detail, which I understand. Today, students can borrow from the federal government a certain amount of money each year that is only in their name. These are called the federal direct student loans. If a student or family has to do any borrowing, we always recommend that the student borrows these funds first and that they max out the dollar amounts. And it's not hard to max out the dollar amounts because they're not that high. So for example, the first year, a freshman can only borrow $5,500 from the government in their name. The second year, it's $6,500. Third and fourth year, it's $7,500. So that's the money that I'm referring to here. So the cap that is new, which if your student is only going for undergraduate degree, it may not be an issue. But the cap, where there really wasn't a cap before, is now $257,000 lifetime. That seems pretty high, and for many students it might be. But if your student has a desire to go on to any sort of graduate program, particularly obviously in the healthcare, medical school, or maybe even law school, those caps are going to affect them in the long run. So just want to make people aware about that. I've seen a lot of discussion. I've got questions from parents whose students, now know that they're interested in something like medical school, which is great that they can, articulate that type of interest early on. And it means more planning than ever before because of these caps, and because how much you're going to be able to help them borrow through in undergrad. So the new student loan caps aren't really horrible for undergraduate if all you're going to go to is undergraduate, because it's not a huge change, but it's really more of an impact for long-term planning if your student is planning on any sort of graduate program. Okay, the bigger change is on the other side of the slide about the new Parent Plus loan caps. So you probably weren't familiar because you didn't have to go through this, but today and in the past, parents could borrow whatever the difference was that they had, whatever the gap was between what the college was charging and what money they might be getting in financial aid or merit scholarships. That difference is what the parent was able to borrow from the government in a Parent Plus loan. And in theory, it was unlimited. It was limited by the cost of attendance because you can't borrow more than what the college is going to charge you. But just making up numbers, if you only got financial aid or if you only had enough money to pay for $20,000 and your student's cost of attendance was $80,000, you could, in theory, borrow the difference, $60,000 per year from the government in a Parent Plus loan. So that's what's in effect today, but changing in July 2026. So it will impact the parents of the class of 2026, 2027, 2028, and beyond for the foreseeable future. There are caps now that will prevent you from being able to borrow up to the cost of attendance. So the new cap is $65,000 lifetime per child per household. So I emphasize the per household part because it doesn't matter if both parents split and one parent takes Parent Plus loan one year and another one takes it the other year. It is a total of $65,000 for that student, regardless of which parent takes out the Parent Plus loan. So that's $65,000 over 4 years. And then in addition, another cap is that per year, a parent can only borrow $20,000 of the $65,000 total cap. So that means that, you have to really plan, which again, we've always said this, but it's becoming even more important. You really have to plan out your 4 years and how are you going to pay for the 4 years. So, so someone said, can I say the annual caps for student loans again? Yes, I will say it because it's not on this slide. So the first year for freshmen, it is $5,500 that a student can borrow on their own without a cosigner directly from the government. It is $6,500 for sophomore year and $7,500 for junior and senior year. So your student can borrow, those dollar amounts. Let's start freshman year. They can borrow 5,500. You can borrow 20,000. So to get capacity from the government of $2,500. Okay. So just using round numbers to make this easy. Let's say that the cost of attendance is 50,000. Your student's going to borrow the max, and you're going to borrow the max, and so now you're left with $24,500 that you need to pay, whether it's from your savings or a private scholarship or some other way, because you can no longer borrow that money from the government. There was a question about private lenders. Yes, at that point, you can go and see if a private lender will lend it to you. I'm not quite sure what's really going to happen in the private lending space. I mean, I have ideas. There obviously is going to be a lot more business for private lenders. That's one thing. And private lenders are going to get a lot more business, not just from undergraduate loans. There's a lot of changes happening for graduate programs, and what students actually, they were not going to be able to borrow anything more from the government for a it's called a grad plus loan. Starting next year, the government isn't going to be offering grad plus loans at all. So I say this because they've already actually been talking to some private lenders, and their market for graduate loans, for private graduate loans, is going to increase significantly. And as a lender, they get better returns on loans to graduate students than they do to undergraduate students. So they are probably going to put more of an emphasis on being able to lend to graduate students versus undergraduate students, or the parents of undergraduate students. That's one thing. The second thing is there's just only a certain amount of capital available, and a lender or a bank, needs to decide how much they want to go into student loans. It's unclear how many lenders want to increase their portfolios, of student loans. They are, riskier. So I just say that because don't just think, oh, well, I'll just go get a private loan. You can try. The private rates, definitely might be higher. And I think in a lot of cases, if you don't have good credit, which is another kind of warning I'm putting out there, check on your credit score, particularly, well, actually, all of you guys, class of 2026, 2027, you have a year and more before you're going to have to borrow. So I would check on your credit scores and start working on them to get them as high as possible. And I mean, even if you've got like a high 700, I would work on it to try and get it into the 800s. Just to have that fallback if you need to borrow. The higher the credit score, among other things, they look at, is going to get you a better rate. And don't really know where the rates are going to be because, to some extent, there could be a lot more competition in private loans, which could help consumers. On the other end, it's a captive market now because there's really not many other places that a family can get a loan once they've capped out with the government loan. So sorry to talk a lot about loans, but I really want people to understand this much earlier in the process, because as you can see, you really need to understand where you're going to get your own funding from. You can't just rely anymore on, oh, if I don't have enough in my savings, and even if I got money from the government, or sorry, if I got money from a school and they gave me merit scholarships, I'll just borrow the rest in a Parent Plus loan if I don't find a private lender that gives me the better rate. you won't be able to borrow as much as you used to in the past from a Parent Plus loan, and you may not get as good rates as you used to from the private lenders. So that's why I'm focusing so much on this now. Okay, let's continue. Oh, so somebody's asking, what about 5-year programs? My student is looking at a 5-year architectural bachelor's program. So we're referring to the undergraduate limits that I mentioned. Actually, an undergraduate can borrow for a 5th year, but the total max is, I don't know, I think it's like 31,500. So, whatever they haven't borrowed for undergraduate, whatever might be left, they can borrow for that, or for the first 4 years, they can borrow for the 5th year. So there is some borrowing for the 5th year, but it's not a lot. Okay, moving on. So what are merit scholarships? Again, most of you might know it, but for those who don't, we'll just quickly go over it. Sounds great. In some cases, a merit scholarship is truly a scholarship in that, it's competitive. Your student has to apply. They give it to a limited number of students. They might have to fill out an essay or an application, even have an interview. And so you truly feel like your student has, kind of earned the money because it's selective. So it happens in some cases. In a lot of cases now these days, we really are calling or considering merit aid or merit scholarships like a tuition discount. So colleges are using this bucket of money to say, hey, we want to attract a certain family, we want to attract a certain student that might have certain academic profile, might have certain talents that we want at the college. And so we're going to incentivize them by offering them more money, or they actually are very sophisticated, the colleges, and they work with consultants called enrollment management consultants, and they have models. And, kind of like in other industries, you might model the likelihood of a consumer to take an offer if you actually give them a discount or you lower the price. That's similar to what colleges are doing these days. And they've been doing it for a while, and they might discount, oh, well, they know a family similar to yours might be more open to having their student come if we give your student a merit scholarship of $15,000 because it lowers the net tuition to that family. So, so this money is being used for true scholarship opportunities, but also to incentivize certain families and certain students to accept an offer at a college. It is not dependent on financial need. And so what that means is that colleges aren't using the FAFSA, which for families maybe who are 2027, 2028, that's the federal form that students fill out to apply for any sort of financial aid, whether it's from the government or from a college. So they're not using that information. Merit scholarships are dependent much more on your student, their profile, their academics, their talent, and an application that they may have to submit. In a lot of cases, as I mentioned, the college is using this money to incentivize a student to come that might not ordinarily come. And who is that type of student that might not maybe immediately accept an offer from a college? It could be a student who has a higher profile, higher academic profile than that school, and they might be waiting for offers from other maybe schools that they deem as more prestigious or more selective. So the students that are usually awarded merit scholarships are students who are applying to a school that fall into what we call the top percentile of the test score or GPA range. So it's a student that has a test score that is higher than 75% of the other students who normally attend that college. And I'm going to show you how you can find those numbers to see, does your students' academics fall into that top percentile to make them at least academically attractive to the school and much more likely to be offered merit scholarships. The other good thing about merit scholarships is when your student is awarded them, and a lot of merit scholarships are awarded in the admissions process. They are usually renewable for 4 years. So your student, whatever the scholarship is for freshman year, your student will receive it for sophomore, junior, and senior year. The only possibility that they might not receive it is a lot of times the merit scholarships are based on the student's GPA at the college. So you have to see what that GPA requirement is and discuss it with your student. Make sure that they feel comfortable that they can achieve it. Depends. Some colleges make it very achievable. It's a 3.0. Other colleges do make it a 3.5, which, can start to be a little bit pressure on your student, because the worst situation is when your student attends or you accept a college, you say to your student, okay, you can go, we can afford it, but you can afford it because your student is getting scholarships from that college. And then sometime during their their college years, they lose a scholarship, and all of a sudden that school that was affordable unfortunately becomes unaffordable because they don't have that scholarship. And the most likely case of losing the scholarship is because they no longer meet the GPA requirements. Okay, so somebody's asking about test scores, and I mentioned about the top percentile students. A lot of schools these days are test optional. Very not as many are test blind. The California schools, some schools are, a handful of private schools are. So I would still say the majority of the schools are test optional. Just because they're test optional doesn't mean that they're not looking at test scores, doesn't mean that they're still not using test scores in certain ways. And I'm going to show you data that you can look at to get a sense. No school is completely transparent about what they do about test scores, but they might be clues in the data that kind of say whether a school leans one way or the other. So you can still apply test optional if you think that that's the right way for your student to apply. Definitely students still receive merit scholarships who are test optional. I would, some schools actually do require test scores for merit scholarships. So they may be test optional for applying, but they may not be test optional to receive merit scholarships. So this is all kind of like further research and questions you need to ask a college. A lot of times sometimes, particularly if they're requiring if they're requiring test scores for merit scholarships, it might be on the website. But these are important questions to ask the admissions office. If your student's going, if you or your student are going to any sort of presentations, raise your hand and ask this question, go up to the officer afterward. It is a perfect question for your student to send in an email, which kind of does double purpose because it shows some demonstrated interest for the college. So I wish that there was like a central resource that we can pull up and say, oh, let's look, what does Tulane do? Are they using it? How are they really using their test scores? There isn't. Admissions on some level is gotten a little bit more transparent, but it's still pretty much very opaque for a lot of the process. So it's a really important question about whether your student should be submitting test scores, even though the school is test optional. I would discuss it with your student's school counselor if you value their advice. I would discuss it with maybe friends who have had students go through the process. I wouldn't take it lightly. And this is not to force students to send in test scores. It's just that you're making a smart and researched decision about whether to send in the test score or not. Okay, so there are different types of merit scholarships. These are categories we made up, but it just is to group the merit scholarships to make them more understandable. So there are merit scholarships which we call automatic, and the reason why they're automatic is because the college is looking at every application that they get through the season, and they are determining every student in every application, are they eligible for merit scholarship? Would we offer this student a merit scholarship? So really, from the student's perspective, there's nothing more that they have to do to be considered for merit scholarships. They just apply. From the college's perspective, they are looking at every application that comes through, and they are considering whether or not the student should receive a merit scholarship. An important kind of subgroup of these automatic merit scholarships are the colleges that are as transparent as possible, and we wish more colleges were like this, and they put all the information on their website, and they have charts, and they have tables, and it says, and I'll show you an example of one, it says, if a student with this GPA, and sometimes they put in, and with this test score range applies, they will automatically get a merit scholarship of this amount, or a range of a merit scholarship of this amount. So for sure, with confidence, if your student meets those requirements and they apply to that school, then your student's going to get that money in merit scholarships, and you can use that for your financial planning purposes. So if your student is applying to a school that has one of these charts, and they fit into one of the categories, that you'll receive that money. So the school, if their cost of attendance is $50,000 and your student is eligible for a $20,000 merit scholarships, you can now estimate that sending your student to that school is going to cost around $30,000. That's how you can estimate, before your student even applies, what the cost is going to be at that school. In addition to any sort of estimation that you might do, you should absolutely also do a school's net price calculator. Some of them are accurate. I can't promise that they're all accurate. And hold on to this information, because it's part of the research that you're doing. It's part of the decision set that you're going to have to look at and decide, do I feel comfortable allowing my student to apply to these schools from a financial standpoint? And you'll compare the net price calculator to what your estimate is if your student were to get merit scholarships. Sometimes the net price calculator includes the automatic awarding of merit scholarships, and sometimes it doesn't. The biggest clue is if the net price calculator is asking for your student's GPA and or asking for the test scores, then they're likely factoring that information in. But if they're not asking for either, then it's hard to know whether or not they are considering merit scholarships in the net cost that the calculator spits out to you. Okay, so that's automatic. Competitive merit scholarships are, again, kind of what the term means. It means that your student's going to have to do something else in addition to just sending in their application. A competitive merit scholarship most likely has an additional application. It could have additional essays that your student needs to write. In some cases, it might have an interview process. So it's just more work. It's important more work. In some cases, ahead of time what this additional work is. And I actually took my slide out because I wanted to get to other things, but the example I usually show is USC, University of Southern California. They actually also have a deadline, which is different for merit scholarships. So that's another really important piece of information that you and your student need to be looking out for. What are the deadlines? So I'll give you the example. For University of Southern California, their regular decision deadline is December 1st. So if your student applies December 1st, they are going to be considered for admission, but they will not be considered for merit scholarships. The deadline to be considered for merit scholarship is November 1st, which also coincides with the early action deadline for USC, which is a new deadline that they put in place about 2 years ago. So what they're saying is, if your student wants to be considered for merit scholarships at USC, you need to apply early action. And those are the students we're going to be reviewing for merit scholarships. You miss that deadline, you might be accepted to USC in December, but you're not going to receive any merit scholarships. So that's really important to know the deadline. In other cases, for competitive merit scholarships, your student might be actually, I shouldn't say that. Your student sends in the application, and then it could be after they send in the application that a college reviews the applicants, and then they reach out selectively to a subset of students and say, hey, we would like to offer you the opportunity to apply for these scholarships. So that's another way colleges handle it. Some colleges have different deadlines on their website with additional essays and forms that a student needs to fill out, and other colleges might actually send an invitation to a student after they send in their application. I would be very careful. I would do due diligence to make sure that you and your student have looked through the college website to understand all of these policies and merit scholarships and how they're awarded, and if there's additional information that needs to be filled out. I would look towards the college website. I would talk to the admissions office. And I say that I wouldn't solely rely on the Common App. And I'll tell you why. It's sometimes what happens in the Common App is it doesn't tell you about a next step, or it doesn't tell you about another essay that needs to be filled out until your student starts to submit the application for that college. So here's an example. I can't remember the specific college per se, but this happens several times on the Common App. Your student might be interested in a college. They're filling out that portion of the information for that college, and then as they're filling it out, they get prompted that they need to fill out a supplemental essay, about a major. So that wasn't clear up front, and all of a sudden, students who are kind of filling out the Common App, not saying anything bad about, but students who might be leaving it to a few days before the deadline are prompted and oh my God, I didn't know I needed to do this, additional essay, whether it's because, for a major that they're applying to, or it could be for a merit scholarship. So I would go to the college website, see as much information as you can there. I was actually on a call yesterday with a company that gathers information across lots of other colleges, and we all agreed that the source of truth is a college's website and the admissions office. So you can narrow down and do research and search on other websites, and that does make things easier to kind of get to this, more of a semifinal list that maybe is 15 colleges, maybe it's 20, then you move it down to 10 or whatever, 12 to 8. But when you get to that kind of lower level number of colleges, I would go to the website and make sure that you are getting all the information you need about the admissions process. Okay. Talent, merit scholarships. I'm sorry, I'm going to move along fast. Just is kind of what it is. If your student has special talent, art, dancing, music, theater, there's usually, could be specific scholarships for those talents. Very likely you have to send in a portfolio, which is also potentially a different deadline. You might have to schedule an audition. Again, could be a different deadline. So make sure that you're on top of all those deadlines. Okay, this is my quick example of a school that is very transparent about the information. This is Miami, University of Ohio. You can see, I'm going to go through this quickly. I have the charts from 2020 just because I've been following this school. And over time, obviously, they used to publish both the test scores and the GPA. That changed with COVID as they became test optional. And you can also see that from year to year, and particularly as they moved to just GPA, the GPA range shifted. So in 2021, the top GPA was 3.95, and then in 2024 and 2025, the top GPA number now is 4.3. I actually haven't gone. I should go to see if they've put them out, if they've got a chart yet for the students applying for the fall of 2026, and to see if that's changed. But good for Miami University. I love that they are transparent. They're even actually transparent about the fact that they are looking at a student's weighted GPA, which a lot of schools do not. So I would make sure you know what GPA numbers are listed and what the college is going to be using for evaluation. In all honesty, most colleges are using unweighted, but obviously Miami decided to use a weighted GPA, and then they tell you as the asterisk. So these are all the fine details that are really important to make sure that if your student's applying to a school like this, that they are going to fall into the range that you all expect them to fall into, and not fall into a different range because you are using the weighted GPA and the college is using the unweighted GPA. Okay, let me just, before I go on to here, I see a question which is kind of interesting. Many college prices went way up in July. Are you going to address that in regards to tariffs, et cetera? Let me, so I'm not quite sure. I mean, I do know why colleges' prices went up in July. I'm not sure it's necessarily related to tariffs or anything yet that's happening in the politics. The reason why colleges' prices go up in July is because that's the fiscal year for most colleges, and that's when they publish their new tuition and cost of attendance numbers. July, that's the month. So if you're seeing prices change, it's a lot of it could just be because that's their yearly increase that happened. The college pricing is set by usually the Board of Trustees, and they don't usually meet until the end of the school year. And so that's why you're seeing it. I'm not quite sure personally. This, I'm not saying that I have academically thought this through yet, but to give you a quick answer, I'm not sure that college prices are going to increase because of what's happening politically. I think what's going to happen is that unfortunately colleges might have less aid to give out to students. So I think that's where you might see the impact. But I'll give it more thought. And again, if there's going to be an impact, it's not necessarily coming from tariffs. It's probably coming from the restriction on international students, and that's a little unclear about how much that's really going to go through yet or not. Okay, so this is my section on what I call know your numbers. Going to again speed through this so that I can get to the actual tool and show you how it works. Again, so important for me. I like to impress upon families to know, to really figure out in advance how much an individual school might cost you. You can't do it down to the penny, but I do think you can estimate within like a $5,000 or $7,000 range of what a school might cost. And again, based on what I talked about earlier with loans, it's even more important than ever that you can estimate before your student applies what that school might cost you. It doesn't mean you're going to tell your student don't apply. That's a decision that you're going to have to make, but at least you'll know ahead of time, if my student applies and gets in and really wants to go, can I afford it or not? Or you might say to your student, okay, I'm not sure we can afford this school. I'm going to let you apply, but I want you to know that ahead of time. And when all the numbers come in, we'll have to reevaluate. At least you're kind of setting expectations that, you're going to, I'm encouraging everybody to have a talk about budget and numbers and money before your student applies, and then throughout the process, and then absolutely when all of the acceptances come in and all your final numbers come in, you're going to have to obviously have another conversation then about what you truly can afford and what you're willing to borrow if that's the case. Okay, important numbers to know: cost of attendance, student aid index, which is from the FAFSA, what your family's need might be, and then what your family's budget is, because it doesn't matter what the government says, you might have a different number for what your family can afford and what your budget, what you're willing. There's always afford and what you're willing to spend. And I make no judgment on anybody's decision. These are personal family decisions, but just important to know what they are. So somebody's asking, has recent legislation changed the SAI number? Not this year and not the coming years. The SAI formula was changed 2 years ago, and that was a headache, and that was they called it the FAFSA fiasco. But those things have smoothed over, and the systems are in place, and we're not running into problems. So no, whatever the formula is now is going to be this coming year, and hopefully we won't have any issues with that. Okay, here is a table. It's again just to kind of give you a guideline or direction about your SAI is made up. The two most important pieces of the SAI are parents' income and parent assets. There's a section for student income and student assets. Actually, it plays an important role too, but most students don't have that much income and most students don't have that many assets. So the majority of the impact on the formula is coming from the parents' information. So this is, again, an estimate to kind of give you a sense of like where certain families might tap out in terms of getting financial need from a college. So families with household income on the left and assets across the top from left to right. If you fall within some combination of the income and assets, you can see that the slight yellow category, you'll probably this is what your SAI number will be. And then you can see that as where the red starts is a family that maybe has a household income of 300,000 and has assets of 350,000. These are non-retirement assets. And somebody's asking what are considered assets. There's actually a little bit more detail, but like just for the purpose of this quick conversation, it is, it's non-retirement. So something that's not in an IRA, not in a 401k, but it is, and it is not your house for FAFSA purposes. For another financial calculation called this from the CSS profile, they will include the equity in your house, but for the government, for the federal government, they are not looking at the equity in your house. So it's really what's in non-retirement investment and savings accounts. So you can see where that red number starts. Household income 300,000, about assets of 350,000, and what that's saying is your SAI is 90,000. So how a college uses this number is it says, okay, our cost of attendance is, let's say, I'll go back to my $60,000. My cost of attendance is 60,000. Your SAI is 90,000. So according to the federal formula, you don't have financial need because you have enough money from your income and assets to cover my cost of attendance, because my cost of attendance is less than your SAI. So that's why at about 90,000, most colleges are not going to give a family with an SAI of 90,000 any sort of need-based aid. So for those families, the only way they're going to be able to lower their costs of attendance is by going to a college that's going to give you merit scholarships, because the merit scholarships are not looking at this formula. So I'm sorry, I don't have this table for a family of 3. We kind of had to, these are like, not easy to calculate. So, but we did it on a family of 4 because that's like the most likely family composition. So again, this is just giving you a sense of where you might fall. You can go and calculate an estimate of your SAI. Google federal SAI estimator, and it's on the federal government's website. It is actually hasn't been affected by anything that's been going on with the government. It's still out there. This is AGI. This is your adjusted gross income. This is not gross income. So very important, whatever class you are, class of 2028, class of 2027, class of 2026, it's a must. Go find out what your SAI is. So yes, the income on that slide was adjusted gross income. So here's how your SAI is used, right? So the college has a cost of attendance. They're gonna take your SAI and subtract it from their cost of attendance. To just kind of quickly go over these examples, if your SAI is below the cost of attendance, you have what they call demonstrated financial need, okay? If your SAI is above the cost of attendance, at that school, you have no demonstrated financial need. So that's the first question to understand. Does my family have financial need at the colleges that we're looking at? And that's going to vary college to college, because your financial need is based on the cost of attendance of that college. So at some colleges, depending, you might have a financial need, depending if the college costs a lot and what your SAI is. And at another college, if the college costs less and your SAI is above the cost of attendance, you might not have a financial need. So you want to understand, where do I fall? For some families, like kind of if we go back to the chart, for some families, honestly, any family that has above $100,000 SAI, you're not going to have financial need at any college, because an SAI at that level is above the cost of attendance of every 4-year college that's out there. So for those families with the high SAIs, the only way you can reduce your cost of attendance is by finding a college with merit scholarships. Again, that's why it's so important to understand merit scholarships and how they play a part in the process. So, oops, sorry, I went the wrong way. So if you understand that the only way you're going to reduce your costs is with merit scholarships. You got to look for those colleges that offer merit scholarships. Just because you don't have any family or demonstrated financial need, just because you want merit scholarships, doesn't mean that every college or student is interested is going to offers merit scholarships and is going to offer merit scholarships to your student. So you can see there's kind of several layers. The first is understanding your SAI, understanding do I have a demonstrated financial need or not? Does the college actually even offer money for merit scholarships? And would my student be attractive to that college to be likely to receive merit scholarships? This slide just quickly points out, regardless of everything I said, if your family has a certain budget, you need to think about how that budget fits into the process. So I might be a family that has an SAI of 100,000. So I'm not going to get need at any college. I'm only going to be able to get merit scholarships. But my budget, for lots of reasons, could be I'm only paying $50,000 for my child because maybe I have 4 kids. Maybe I have, medical issues. Maybe I'm, supporting my own mother or in-law. So it could be lots of reasons why you have. Maybe you just don't want to spend that much money on college, and you think it's more important that you have more money for your retirement. It doesn't matter what the issue is, as long as if you've got a budget, then know that in advance, and then you have to be researching and looking at costs relative to your budget, but understanding what your SAI is going to mean to colleges and whether or not you're applying to colleges that can offer merit scholarships. Okay, now I'm going to switch quickly to, actually, let me do one more thing. So a lot of where the information is about colleges, a ton of data is in something called the Common Data Set. Would love to know if anybody has looked at the Common Data Set. I imagine families from the class of 2026 have. If you're a class of 2027, 2028, you can Google any college. I just usually give the example of, I think it's my next slide. No, Tulane. If you Google Tulane Common Data Set, most colleges will have a page on their website that lists a link to their most current common data set and then previous year's common data set. So, in this case, the most up-to-date common data set is the 2024-2025 common data set. Just so that you know what the numbers mean, it means the common data set covers a particular academic year. So this common data set is covering the academic year of 2024-2025 because that's the most current one. So their information is based on the students who enrolled in that school starting in the fall of 2024. Okay, so oops, sorry, wrong way. So there's a ton of information on a college's common data set. I mean, like 300 plus pieces of data. Some of them is just interesting. Some of them is really valuable to use in your search. This is a sample of what I think is valuable if I were looking at a college's common data set. SAI is important for the family budget is important for the family, but things like understanding the test scores. So colleges actually share a lot of good test score information. They will share, what their 50th percentile is, what their 75th percentile is, what the 25th percentile is of students that enrolled at that school. So you get a sense of what type of student was actually accepted and then ended up enrolling at the school. And for the places for the schools that offer merit scholarships, and if your student applies, you want your student to be in that top 25% or the 75th percentile and above of a test score, because that means that they're at the high end of the academic profile of the students who were enrolled, and much, much more likely that school is going to offer your student a merit scholarship. So that's important piece of information that's in the common data set. It may not be on the college's website as clearly, but it's in the college's common data set. Another piece of oops, sorry, let me go back. Another piece of important information is I'm going to skip to the fourth one. The percent of students without need who actually get merit. So again, this is another layer in the process. A school might offer merit scholarships, which is good. And then your student might be in their 75th percentile range. So that's also good. You're likely that they're going to be offered merit scholarships. But you also want to know how many students who don't have need, because that's the students who are going to receive merit scholarships, are actually awarded merit scholarships. So just because you don't have need and your student is in that top 75th percentile doesn't mean you're going to get merit scholarships if the school only offers it to like 5% of the students who don't have need. So you want to make sure, is that school offering it at least to 40% of the students that don't have need, or even higher? Then you know that there's a really strong likelihood that your student's going to get merit because they fit all the criteria. So that's an important number to see. And you'll see some colleges, honestly, like Duke is an example. Duke actually gives merit scholarships. They give it to 2% of the students who don't have need. So they can say, oh, we give a merit scholarship, but they're giving it to so few students that it's kind of like meaningless. Okay. And then you want to know what's the average merit dollar that they're giving it. What's the average merit award? That's information that is in the common data set. This is, I think, valuable information data set, but it's not necessarily on the college's website. They're not like kind of blasting out these numbers. You kind of have to dig to find it. Graduation rates are important. So legally, a college only has to show the 6-year graduation rate on their website. It was something I haven't really dug into it. There's so much to uncover in college data. But that's what the government requires colleges to show, just the 6-year graduation rate. I don't want to know the 6-year graduation rate. I want to know the 4-year graduation. I'm not paying for 6 years of college, right? So you got to dig to find the 4-year graduation rate. That, actually that's either on the common data set or in the IPEDS, which is the government information. Okay, so anyhow, you can see lots of good data here. I encourage you to look at a school's individual common data set, but what's really hard is to kind of have a source that shows you all this important data across all of the colleges and their common data set, and then to be able to search that data, what I would say is like a reverse lookup. So, and that's what our platform does. So our platform lets you look at, show me the colleges that have merit awards of, $10,000 or more. Show me the colleges where a test score of 1,200 is in the 75th percentile. Show me a college that offers merit scholarships to 20% of the students without 8 or more. So that's what our tool allows you to do. If you go to a school's individual website or common data set, you'll be able to see the information, but you don't know who else might have similar information. Okay, so now I'm going to skip to showing you to show you our website or platform and how to use it. So no, we don't have a ton of time left. Can you guys see it? Did it switch in the slides? Does this show you insights? Yes. Okay. So if you go to insights.road2college.com, or if you just go to our regular, if you go to our main website and you go to memberships, you can create a free membership, so you can sign up that way. But actually, so if you didn't have account, this is what you would see to sign up for the first time. I'm going to go back to Insights. Okay, so actually, if you click the menu Insights on our website, this will bring you to the homepage. Then you click here, log in. If you don't have an account, you'd click sign up for an account. If you have an account, you log in here. I'm just going to log straight in because I have an account to show you. So this is the dashboard. And again, if you're new and you're setting up a free account, you obviously have to verify your email address and you have to fill out a few pieces of information for a profile, and then you come to this dashboard. And we also have a tour that takes you through the different parts of the website and the dashboard. I'll quickly go over this and then go to searching for college. But depending on your year of graduation, this My Road will show you what we believe are important steps that you should be making sure you do. And if you click on each one of them, it shows you articles if you don't understand and want more information about what that particular step means. Okay, so that's the My Road. The list section is, I'm going to show you next quickly. It's where you make and search all of our data, and you can create your lists. So if you start to create lists, you can click on this and it will take you directly to your list. This section here on applications will be done probably in a week and a half. This is where once you've decided on which colleges your student is going to apply to, we try and help you track it. So you would tell us, my student's applying to these schools. You now have a list of all those schools. You have the deadlines. Whether it's early decision or early action. We also tell you what the financial aid deadline is. We tell you, does that school have an application fee? Do they require supplemental essays? And we actually have a section for you to add in what your net cost is, what your estimated cost is. So it's just to help you track the process. This other section here called offers will be blank for everybody because this is when you get your offers. You then can enter in what the school actually offered your student. And at that point, you'll be able to compare that offer to other students who got offers at the same college. So that's a little bit further down in the process. And then this section down here, it's a library. Even in a free account, we give you access to various webinars that we've done in the past, or everybody gets access to, this is a partner that we're working with, some lessons, some free lessons for SAT and ACT. You also get access to some downloads. Trying to look for some. They are here. Here, some of these downloads about how to create a standout common app. These are tip sheets. So some of this information is free on a free account, and other information is saved for Plus and Premium people that have a paid account. So, and then lastly, these two other sections are, if you're interested and you want extra help, here's our list of like services of how we can work one-on-one. And then these are partners that we work with. So that's the dashboard, but let me go into how you would discover colleges. Okay, so you can view this information two ways. It could be a little overwhelming, but I encourage people to view it in the table format because there's a lot of good information. In the thumbnail view, which is maybe better for mobile, you can see the colleges you can filter, but we just don't show as much of the detailed data in the thumbnail view. So I'm going to go back to list view. And this is a new version of the platform from us. It's about 3 weeks old. What I love about it is that we added some new data, which I'll point out, but the ability to filter is so much more flexible and powerful than it was in our previous version. So if you click here where it says filters, you can filter on almost every one of these columns. We have created a default of what we know are the most common filters that people use. So that's what pops up. But if you go down here and it says add filter, you can pick any of those columns to add to your list of filters. So that's pretty powerful. So that's one thing. The second thing is the way that you can filter. So here, I can say, kind of going to this issue of cost, which obviously you can see is important for me. I want to search to find a college that is has a cost of attendance less than or equal to, it's going to pop up. I'm going to be able to put in, like 50,000. Okay. So I can do that. I can change this and say, I want to show me all the colleges that cost between 50,000 to 60,000. So I can do that. Now I can add this here. I'm going to add this criteria to something else. Actually, before I do that, and then I could do that if I want to look for state schools. So I want to look at the in-state cost of attendance, or if I know I'm out of state, I want to look at the out-of-state cost of attendance across lots of colleges. Here's the 75th percentile, right? here's what I talked about. So let's just say your student has a test score of 1300. So I might want to see all the schools where my student's test score of 1300 or 1350, what I say, that is in the 75th percentile. So I'm going to say, show me schools. I can do it any way I want, but I'm going to say, show me schools that have the SAT between, I'm going to say 1250 to 1350, and that's their 75th percentile or higher. So I'm going to include that. Then I'm going to say, show me, I'm going to skip down to this column that where the average merit award dollar is. Show me all the schools that offer merit that is greater than or equal to $5,000. Okay. Then I'm going to say, but you know what? I also want to know, well, actually, let's just look at those schools. So, so we had, I don't know if you saw it, it was down here on the corner, about 3,900 colleges in here with all their data. That those two criteria filtered it down to 225 colleges. So 225 colleges have a 75th percentile SAT of 1250 to 1350, and they give merit, and the merit amount they give is $5,000 or more. Okay, so let's go through this. You can scroll through every column here. We've also done some preset views for you. So I'm going to just go to my R2C picks because these are the columns that I like to look at the most often. And I'm going to scroll over to the column that said average merit award. It's in this column. Oops, not highlighting, sorry. See if I can highlight this, but average merit award for freshmen without need. And I'm going to sort this column. Oop, I want it so it's descending. Okay, so for a student with a 1350 or 1300, if I wanted to apply to a school that I knew that they were going to be at the top of the academic range and a school that offers money, Susquehanna comes to the top. Susquehanna actually gives $40,000 in merit scholarship. And we just don't know that from the numbers. I'm going to show you, it's actually not on this chart, but here, I'm going to click into the college detail of Susquehanna. I'm going to go to the tab that says aid and merit. And now we have down here, these are actual awards that students shared this year that Susquehanna gave them. And you can sort this. We had a little bug with this, so I hope that this works. So let's see. You can sort, yes, it does. Okay, we can sort this by the SAI range. So you want to look at what SAI range is similar to yours. So let's say, so at the bottom here, you can see that the students that had high SAIs, they got 41, 45,000, 52,000, 48,000. These are actual awards from the academic year, you know, that they're going to start in 2025. So these are, you know, high school seniors who just graduated. If I wanted to, I could look at past years. I could look at last year's and see how does that also fare? So that's similar. They a lot of similar awards in the 40,000. So you have the data that the colleges are sharing in their common data set, plus you have the data actually from students who are sharing, and we are crowdsourcing their data. So, and in this case, the information is confirmed. So that's pretty valuable. So again, now I've gone down a little bit of a rabbit hole, but I found a college that's going to offer my student a lot of money if they have that test score of like 1300. And now I can estimate what my net cost will be at that college. Okay, so let's go back to the discovered table. And so I still have, you can see here, and I apologize if this is on the small side, you can see here where it says active filters. I still have those filters. And let's say now I want to add something else to the filter. And I want to say, okay, now I know which schools can offer merit scholarship to my student in this SAT range. I could add, okay, well, my student really only wants to make sure that they can major in economics, or I can add, you know, to make sure that the colleges in this, the 225 colleges, which ones have specific majors. So I can, you know, choose and major. But I also might want to say, hey, I know it's important to apply early if a school has an early action. So now let me see which of those schools, which of these 225 schools have an early action deadline. Now I've added that. And now we see there's 130 schools of the original grouping of 225 that have early action. So I might want to focus on these first because I know if my student applies, it would be important if they can apply as early as possible. So that's how you can use this data. You can also look at, you see these columns, overall admit rate, early decision admit rate, early action. We've done the math for you. So just because a college has an overall admit rate, let's say, of 79%, does that, it means it might, the other numbers might be different if you apply early action or early decision. So let's see in this range if we, okay, so Spelman College has an overall admit rate of 35%, but, and this is interesting, so they have early action and early decision. If you apply early decision, you have a higher chance of being admitted. Early action, you also have a higher chance of being admitted. So that's why it's important to be looking at these numbers. If your student, I'm going to take away these filters and show you something else. If your student is interested in more selective schools, let me show you, actually here, we'll just do it this way. We will, it actually automatically, here, let's look at the early decision rate numbers. Okay, so this is early decision. If this is a path that your student's going to go down, you can see that a lot of the early decision numbers are higher than early action numbers. So Pomona College, 7% overall admit rate, but 13%, early decision rate. The other important column to look at is, well, what percent of the class is the college taking? Meaning, how are they accepting early decision? So again, Pomona College, 13, they're admitting 13% of the class, or sorry, the acceptance rate early decision is 13%, but they are admitting 52%. Here, this is this field. Can I highlight it? Sorry, oops, not highlighting well enough. Let me go back here. Sorry, I changed the number. Okay, so that column that says percent of class filled early decision, they are taking and accepting 52% of the class early decision. They've committed that half of the class already. So by the time your student applies regular decision, where we know that there is a larger number of applications coming through, you have more applications chasing fewer seats. So that's why getting in regular decision at a school like this becomes more competitive. It's just a numbers game, and you need to understand the numbers. I'll show you a really kind of stunning example. Let's look at this. Is in some of the, I will admit, okay, how does a school like Austin College accept 497% of their class early decision? They don't. These numbers are all taken from the common data set. The common data set is humanly entered, and we have absolutely found colleges who make mistakes or just enter the wrong numbers. So, how we can't prevent it. Unfortunately, we can bring it to the college's attention. They don't always correct it. So yes, should you be suspicious of that number? Yes, that's probably not correct. And if your student was really interested in Austin College, I would bring it to their attention and say, can you tell me what the real numbers are? But I would say 98% of the numbers here are valid, but you are going to come, and we don't correct it because this is what the numbers calculate out and say that, Austin College is accepting 497% of their class early decision. We might notify Austin College, but we don't change the numbers because, that's what they've publicized. But let's go to, look down here, Middlebury College, okay, a selective school. And they have an overall admit rate of 11%. Their early decision admit rate is 43%. They are accepting 69% of the class early decision. So basically, if Middlebury College was important to your student, they really wanted to go there, I would say the numbers say apply early decision because your chances of getting in regular decision are just really much tougher. So that's another way that you can use this data. Let me tell you one other, and this is new data that we added as part of the update to the platform. It's these two columns, the percent of students submitting SAT scores and percent of students submitting ACT scores. So this is data that is in the common data set. Not every school shares it, but if they do, we have it here. What this means is these are the percentage of students who enrolled in that college and how many of the enrolled students also submitted a test score as part of their application. A lot of these schools are test optional. You can see that in this column, yet obviously students are still applying. This is where you can start to put the clues together about how important a test score may or may not be to a college. So for example, let's look through here. Let's look at Emory. So Emory is test optional. What this is saying is 42% of the students who enrolled also gave Emory their test score on the application. We don't have the information about how many students who applied with a test score because the colleges don't share that, but they are sharing how many students enrolled submitted a test score. My belief, like just making some hypothesis through, statistics, I would imagine that if 42% of the students who enrolled submitted a test score, that Emory received a pretty high percentage of students who applied and also shared their test score. So, so it's one thing for the school to say they're test optional, and they are. That doesn't prevent the students, and you don't know what percentage of students are actually submitting their scores. And as an admissions officer once said to me, you can't unsee something that you've seen. So if a student submits a test score, even though they're test optional, the school is going to look at that and it will somehow factor in. These are just pieces of a puzzle that we're trying to put together. Let's see what other information I can show you here. Let's go back to the all fields. There's another piece of new information, which I think is interesting and worth looking at. And that is under, hold on, let's look for it. We have the deadlines. Oh, okay. It's these two columns, very important admission factors and important admission factors. This is information from the common data set. In the common data set, there's a section that says factors, admission factors. And they are split between academic admission factors and non-academic admission factors. And the colleges say how important these factors are to them. They can be very important, considered, something else, and not important. So you want to obviously know which of the factors, academic and non-academic, the college feels are very important, and make sure that that corresponds to your student, their application, what they're highlighting. So I'll give you an example. Let's see if we can find it here. Let's go to Tulane. So if I look under Tulane, the two important admission factors that are very important are the rigor of the school record, which is actually honestly going to be for most colleges because that's how academically strong that college is. They are also saying the GPA is important. Again, that's going to be important for most colleges. And they also are saying class rank, which is kind of interesting because a lot of schools these days aren't even providing class rank, but somehow Tulane still finds that that's important. Okay, so that's and they don't actually have non-academic factors as listed as very important. Okay, but now let's look at the next category down, which is important. So what's important for Tulane from here, the academic one is listed below, is the essay, makes sense. Recommendations also makes sense. And Tulane is saying standardized scores are important. They're not very important, but they're important. Tulane is test optional. So they're test optional, but they're saying that test scores are important. I've seen a lot of test optional schools actually put this much lower down. They might say that test scores are considered. I've seen test optional schools saying, not important. So I think it's, I hate to use the word important, but I think it's smart to look at these admission factors and know which in those top two categories the colleges are ranking as important and very important. The other thing that, oh, here's the one that I also found interesting about Tulane. They rank volunteer work in their non-academic factors as an important factor. So they're kind of giving you their clue. They're saying volunteer work is important to us. So if your student does volunteer work, I would 100% be highlighting that, probably highlighting that in an essay, and obviously making sure that that comes through strongly in their list of extracurriculars on the Common App. But here are these, pieces of a puzzle that you're trying to put together that are in the data. You just need to know where to look and kind of how to interpret it. So once you do this type of searching, I guess the other thing I didn't tell you is you can, choose which colleges you want to save. You can add them to a list. I have a lot of lists. I've made a lot of lists over the years. You can add them to an existing list. You can create a new list, and then you can go to My Lists and see them all. One other feature I want to show you is these views on top are views that we made, and it's just kind of like a smaller listing of the columns. So the R2C picks are the data that I think is important. The school profile are columns of data related to, number of undergraduates, the breakout of the ethnicity or grade, or breakout by GPA. So anyhow, these are pre-made views that we created. You can create your own view. And here, let me take away this Tulane, and I'll show you how you can create your own view. You can go here to columns, and you can select any column that you want to hide. So you can make this a much smaller table, because maybe there's only 10 pieces of information that are most important to you. That's fine. So go here and hide whatever columns you want. And then you can actually also pick your filters if you want that to be a view. And then you can go here and save the view. So I'm actually not going to save this because I haven't done anything, but here, if I had created a view, if I had narrowed down my columns and I had put in a filter, I could then save that view, give it a name, and it would show up in the top here as another view that you can quickly go look at. So I'm sure there would be, if you started using this, there's a lot of questions. There's no downside to creating a free account. With the free account, you can look at what's in our library. As I mentioned, some of the things are free. With the free account, you can do some searching. We limit, I think you can get 5 searches, and you can create a list. You can create one list with 5 colleges. So you get a sense of what the tool has. And then if you want to sign up, it's $24.99 a month. And you can use it for a month. You can use it for longer than a month. If you sign up for the Plus and the Premium level, we give you a discount on one-on-one services. And then you also get invited. If you're a premium member, you get invited to, we have live monthly webinars where you can ask questions, and we run that with a former admissions officer, and we also have a college financial planner who runs some of the sessions. So those sessions are to continue to educate you on this crazy process called admissions and paying for college, and to give you the opportunity to ask questions. So I hope that this was both informative today, educational, and that you get a sense of what our Insights tool does. Let me stop sharing and see if there are any questions that I could quickly answer. Okay, oops, sorry, just clearing up my view. Okay. Okay, does the students without need receiving merit include athletic scholarships, or those are separate? Good question. That number does not include athletic scholarships. That's a separate number. And if you actually looked at the common data set, it's a separate line item. So And if athletic scholarships are of interest to you, then you can get that information there, but they don't include that with the students without need. How often does College Insights get updated with the new numbers? For example, the price increase in July 1st, I found discrepancies in the cost of the tool and what's listed on the college website. Fair question. We are right now, actually, we are about halfway through gathering all the new tuition numbers because they just came out in July. And in the next 10 days, we will update Insights, the platform I showed you, with the new tuition numbers. I will tell you that no other website. So most websites use a data source called Peterson's, which license the common data set. We use that too. We actually just had a meeting with them yesterday, and they don't have the most up-to-date tuition information because the information that they take for tuition is from the common data set. The common data set actually for tuition is always going to be a year old because it's from the previous academic year. And because we know that and we know how important cost numbers are, we go and manually pull the costs from the tuition costs and cost of attendance, room and board from the college's website every July, August, and update our data with that. So it's a fair question. I'm glad you checked. We will have them updated in about the next 10 days. Come back and make your comparisons then, but it should be much more accurate in terms of the cost of tuition. I mean, and how much are they off? They're probably off, between 3 and maybe 5% of which, because colleges are increasing their tuition that much, almost every year. Does it tell you the job placement rate for each college? That's a great question. I do not have that information. There is no job placement rate that I know of for a college. It might be for a particular major at colleges. I mentioned we met with the company that we license data from. We just spoke to them yesterday, and that is data that they are starting to collect. So we don't have it now. I think it's important information. I would encourage you, I can actually send you links to places where you can start to look it up. And we will, probably honestly over the next 6 months, we'll get it. We're not going to get it immediately, but it's definitely important information that I'm glad you're asking, and you should consider it. Is there a tutorial on the website? There actually is a quick tutorial on the website. Let me see, go here. Insights help. You know what? We have it. We didn't upload it. So yes, we have a tutorial. We will upload it as soon as I get off here. I'll upload it into the library. And there's also a tour for the first time that you go through of the different sections of the website. Sorry if you haven't said this, but if you do early action or early decision, do you have less chance of getting merit scholarships? I didn't actually talk directly about that. Early action, I haven't really seen colleges give less merit scholarships. Early decision, sometimes, and it's going to vary, honestly, college to college, year to year. But if you just think from a business standpoint, if a college has early decision, and if a student applies early decision, they are committed to going if they get accepted. There's a little caveats to that, but basically that's the purpose and the reason why your student would be applying early decision is because they want to take advantage of potentially, higher chance of getting in, and the college is kind of maybe granting that, better chance because you are committing to removing your other applications and coming to that college. So in some cases, yeah, if you apply early decision, the college might not be as inclined to give you merit scholarships because they'd rather use that money for other students who they kind of have to, have a stronger allure for. So there is the chance. We haven't necessarily tracked it as much. It might be something we can go back and look at, but for early decision, I will say you're kind of taking that chance that you might not get merit scholarships. Let me give you the example that just happened in May. I don't know how much you guys have read about the Syracuse situation, where Syracuse on May 1st, they obviously didn't maybe get the yield that they wanted to get, and they didn't get as many students accepting to come to Syracuse. And so they went out with pretty aggressive counteroffers to students who they had accepted who hadn't gotten back to them and said whether or not they were going to attend or not, or enroll. And they went with some strong merit scholarship offers. In some cases, they upped merit scholarships. In other cases, they gave merit scholarships when they didn't give them in the initial acceptance. Again, pretty significant numbers, like, you know, additional $20,000 per year. So good. That's good for the student who hadn't accepted and was getting these offers. Not so good for the students who had accepted initially and hadn't gotten offers, and really not so good for the students who and the families who had applied early decision. So that was a case where kind of the policy of giving merit scholarships changed throughout the season, and the student who applied and accepted early decision just didn't get the advantage of the changes that happened later in the season. So there's a trade-off. You have a comfort in knowing you got in and the process is over, but you might, you know, not be able to take advantage of things that happen later in the season. But, you know, and a lot of families and parents will attest, and students too, there's a lot of ups and downs in this season. And, you know, you have to deal with a lot more anxiety and stress if you're going to ride it out to the very end. I mean, if you can handle it, it's probably best to ride it out to the end. It just, you got to know that it's going to be a bumpy ride. So for the major specific dropdown, the data is from crowdsourced self-reported students. This is not in the common data set. Correct. So let me go back. I think what you're asking for, it's not major, it's for, here we'll go back to Tulane. It's for the, what I call, oops, I spelled that wrong. It was for the crowdsourced offers, which is, it's actually in the table, but it's also in the college specific. It's on the tab. We've got tab school profile. This is a tab admissions that shows those admission factors and also shows the breakdown of the admission rates, and then aid and merit scholarship. This is our proprietary data. This is data that we collect and crowdsource, and no, this is not on the common data set. Oh, wait a minute. I went to it and I'm not even sharing. I'm so sorry. Oh, gosh, guys, sorry. Okay, sorry. Here it is. This is what I was talking about. Tulane, this data that is the college offers. That's the data that somebody was asking. That's not part of the common data set. That's only part of our website and our platform. Okay, let's go back. Sorry, hold on. Let me get the chat back. Okay. Oh, do I think Syracuse will do this again for 2026? I don't know. Syracuse got really bad press for this. They got bad press because they annoyed the families and the students who had accepted and didn't get this offer. They got bad press from other colleges because it kind of, you know, it made Syracuse look a little desperate, and it would obviously kind of said, we didn't make our numbers and we are trying to make our numbers now by offering students like really good discounts. It also might have signaled to the class of 2027, or I'm sorry, to the class of 2026 who's applying, hey, don't apply early, wait to the end because maybe they'll have to do this next year. So, and I see here somebody said Syracuse grad. It's a great school. It's still a good school, you know, and that's maybe the sad part that, you know, did the actions of what happened in admission kind of look like it might have tainted the quality of the education there? I hope not, because the quality is still a good quality school. It was just, you know, maybe not as smart of a business move for the admissions office. So it's hard to say what's really going to happen this coming year, but I would Google Syracuse, and look at the articles from the May timeframe. Lots of good analysis and descriptions, particularly from Ron Lieber. New York Times wrote a good article about it, and Jeff Slingo wrote a good article about it. I know it was a little wild what happened, but but I can't say for sure what will happen this coming year. Let's see. Oh, I don't send a copy of my slides. Somebody's asking that, but I do we send a link to the presentation, so you can look at it again as many times as you want. And we also put it on YouTube. Okay. I think let's see, does this cause I think I've answered most of the questions. I will go through. What time is it? Oh, it's 1:30. I really appreciate for all you people hanging on. Hopefully this was helpful. Feel free to send questions to support@road2college.com. We try and get to most of the questions as soon as we can. We are a small, lean team, but we are working hard for you guys. And if there's one thing you can take away from this presentation is really understand your family's situation financially before you start the college search. Keep it in mind as you do the college search because there's just going to be fewer options of borrowing money, honestly, starting with the class of 2026. And it's going to be interesting. It's going to be tough, and I think it's going to be sad. I think we're going to see a lot of families who are just unable to college, and they might kind of like just not go that route. Hopefully, maybe they will consider a community college, but it's going to be very different next summer, talking about loans and seeing where people are in terms of how much they're going to need to cover any gaps that they might still have from colleges. Okay, everybody. Thank you. Thanks for showing up. See you soon. Bye.